Hello everybody, this is B Harper from supermarcy.com and I'd like to welcome you back to another video review. Today I'm going to talk about this year's, 2014's, for reference, The Babadook, directed by Jennifer Kent. The Babadook is an Australian psychological horror film, and if you are in the States, this film was probably marketed towards you as a creature feature, when in fact it is absolutely not. Yes, it does have a monster in it, and yes, it does have some very legitimately frightening and intense moments, but first and foremost, The Babadook is a film about grief. It is about the horror and the uncertainty and the terrible, overwhelming feeling of grief. Going off the bat, in a way, The Babadook reminded me of another really good Australian horror film, Lake Mungo. Lake Mungo was very much the same in its theme. It was dealing with the pain of grief and of loss. So with The Babadook, its distinctly psychological approach is what truly makes the film work in its favour. I have heard complaints about the film, and I will get to those later, but just let me give you my own perspective. So, The Babadook suffered a very grievous misfavour when it was marketed as a straightforward creature-based horror movie. Now, while The Babadook, when you do see it, it is quite freaky. But this is not what this movie is about. This movie is about the people. It is about what they feel. It is about what truly drives them. It's intensely human. It is intensely humanistic, and that is what truly draws you in, if you're a mature horror fan. But look, if you're watching this movie in hopes of seeing a really scary creature feature, you are going to be disappointed. So if this sort of film does not appeal to you, don't see it. But look, if you are willing to take the chance and willing to see how really good psychological horror film works, by all means check out The Babadook. So The Babadook follows a single mother and her very young son. Due to a horrendous tragedy that I'm not going to give away in depth, the mother and the son are living their lives, or rather existing, I should say, because the grief that they are feeling is haunting them both in very different ways. Essie Davis, who plays the mother, is a revelation. She is positively luminous. She's a very, very instinctive and wonderful actress that I've had my eye on for quite some time. But now, with the release of The Babadook, I am so glad that she is now getting the exposure and the recognition that she deserves. So the way she plays her character is incredibly genuine, and what also works for her is that although Essie Davis is beautiful, she isn't distractingly so. And that's kind of forgive me for sounding cynical, but that is a rarity in horror films. Very rarely that you get a central female lead character who isn't in her 20s, isn't bodaciously hot, and doesn't wear like skimpy clothing or screams a lot. That Essie Davis is very real. She could be somebody you know, and also somebody you would want to protect, that you would want to see get out of a terrible and traumatic situation alive. So Davis just hits it right off the mark because she's just so unique and you feel for her. Also, the actor who plays her very young son, and pardon me, his name escapes me. This is where some of the criticism for the film comes in. Let's face it, the kid is a brat. But the film also covers the why of why he is a brat. And when you are that age, let me pose you a question. Are you thinking about what other people think of you? If you are grieving a very terrible loss, if you are reacting to a terrible situation that you have had no control over, you're not going to be thinking about your own self-image. You're going to be very concerned about yourself. You will be incredibly self-centric. And in my mind, I think the young actor did quite well to sell that. I mean, look, he's not somebody you might find on Game of Thrones or anything, but that's the thing. His performance is very natural, perhaps a little too natural, and that's why people aren't quite gelling with him. When we see kids in movies or films, at the best of times, we expect them to be more like little adults, little like Rousseau adults, but in the Babadook, that's not the case. This is a kid. He is dealing with a terrible trauma that has affected him so chiefly. So, yeah, I say props to that young actor. And, whether or not he has a future in cinema, who knows? But I think he was very good. As the film as a whole, as I said, it's definitely an emotional meditation. Psychological horror is one of my favourite genres, and I would assume it's a favourite among quite a lot of you. And the reason why is that it doesn't rely on shoving the horror in your face. It respects your intelligence. It respects the fact that you are able to put the dots together in your head and work it out for yourself. And that's something that's horrendously missing from horror films these days, or rather mainstream horror films. I should emphasize that. Mainstream horror films do not respect their audience. They do not respect their expectations or their intellect. But the Babadook manages to break the mold in that regard, and, respect. As for the rest of the film, generally speaking, the pacing is quite good. I had my little issues about wondering as to whether or not a sequence really needed to exist in a couple of places, but I realised that's probably because Jennifer Kent was wanting to sort of like build up all the tension, because in a way making a really good, satisfying horror film is akin to perhaps making love. So you need to sort of like build up the foreplay and build up the tension inside the audience and gradually start to let them feel the sensation. And towards the end of the movie, you want them to feel satisfied. You want to give them a good, solid payoff. And you don't want to be selfish about it. So the Babadook succeeds on that level. Now, as for the Babadook himself, well, here's the thing. Well, here's the thing. If any of you remember the film Sinister with Mr. Boogie, Mr. Boogie himself, let's face it, was not very scary looking, but the way he was portrayed in the film, that is what made him memorable. And the Babadook in this case is like that. You don't see a lot of him, but when you do, he is more suggested at, and it's all in the context that he's shown. The Babadook appears because he has been invited into your life. He's kind of like the Mafia in that regard. The moment you let the Mafia into your life, it will not let go of you. Same thing with the Babadook. Once you allow him into your life, into your home, into your mind, he is not gonna leave. Not without a damn good fight. And his design is it's a little bit jaunty, because if any of you have seen the concept art for him, he's not what you call the traditional horror movie monster, but that's the thing. He works because he isn't traditional. And in my mind, that's what we need more of. We need more horror films and horror villains that defy convention, that defy the expectation of what a lot of mainstream horror cinema has placed on us. And the Babadook is definitely a good step in that direction. So all said and done, I believe the Babadook is one of the better horror films this year. And it's not just a horror film, it is a fantastic drama. It is a fantastic human-based drama that will affect you on so many levels if you go into it with an open mind and an open heart. So, I give the Babadook a 4 out of 5, and I highly recommend that you go and see it. Support what true horror should be. Support, hard-working filmmakers who want to go out there and make a great film and not insult your IQ. We audiences deserve better, and filmmakers need to know that. So go out there and give the Babadook a damn good try. See you later. Bye-bye.